So, so thank you guys for joining us today and being a part of this webinar. And I'm going to go ahead and get started. So this is our 6th year of hosting the NC Junior Chef Competition. So this is going to be an exciting opportunity for students. Make sure I get to next. Right. So why do we have an NC Junior Chef Competition? The intent of this competition is to inspire the next generation of culinary professionals, stimulate interest in locally produced agriculture, create new school meal recipes students will enjoy, increase participation in school nutrition programs, and provide nutrition education, and encourage healthy eating habits. So the Junior Chef Competition recognizes students for their ability to work as members of a team to demonstrate valuable skills in recipe development, food preparation, marketing, public presentation, organization, and local food systems. The Junior Chef Competition consists of 2 parts. You have a recipe contest and a cook-off. Student teams must develop a recipe for a school lunch entree that meets the guidelines to submit the recipe for the recipe contest. For the cook-off, finalist teams prepare, cook, plate, and present their recipe for the judges. The 2022-23 North Carolina Junior Chef Competition will be a virtual hybrid format. Student teams will work together at their school to with guidance from their adult team supervisors and coaches to meet competition requirements, develop the recipe, conduct taste tests of their recipe, and prepare and submit competition materials. Teams will participate virtually in live interviews with a panel of evaluators and a recognition ceremony. So, who is eligible? You have teams of 2 to 4 high school students, grades 9 to 12, currently enrolled in a North Carolina public school that participates in the National School Lunch Program, can participate in the Junior Chef Competition. Students may only be on one team, and only one team is allowed from each high school. Each team must have an adult supervisor, which is a North Carolina public school educator. This can be a family consumer sciences teacher, agriculture teacher, math science teacher. We know probably the easiest is going to be the family and consumer science, or even a school nutrition administrator can be a part of that. The adult team supervisor should provide the team with culinary guidance, teach food safety techniques, assist with costing and nutrient analysis, supervise recipe development and preparation, and help meet competition deadlines. Each team is also allowed but not required to have a team coach. This team coach could be a school nutrition professional. It could be a family consumer science teacher, a cooperative extension agent, a chef or farmer, somebody that could be familiar and helpful in this competition. Teams are strongly encouraged to work with their school nutrition program to ensure that recipes will be replicable for those school meals. The awards available that you can have is student members will get Junior Chef. First of all, the student members will receive Junior Chef Competition chef's hats, coats, aprons, along with certificates and medals based on their team score. First and second and third place teams will receive plaques to display in their school. In addition, the first place team will have the honor of hosting the NC Junior Chef Competition trophy. Also, Sullivan University in Kentucky is generously offering the scholarships that you can see on the screen for the top 3 teams at the state and regional level. So you can see the state finals, what each student team member gets, and then at the Southeast Junior Chef Competition, what they receive. So what are some dates? So to be a part of the 22-23 Junior Chef Competition, the dates that you need to remember are review the NC Junior Chef competition guidelines and plan to participate. On February 3rd, you will turn in your submission form with application and recipe photo, and permission and release forms. And then on February 20th, you will look for a finalist notification by email. And then on March 10th, finalist teams that were chosen, that got their emails on February 20th, will submit their final applications with the recipes, recipe photos, time management plan, and a video of the team recipe prep. Then in March 28th or 29th, teams will participate in the live interviews with their judges. And then on March 30th, teams will participate in the virtual recognition ceremony, where competition results will be announced during that ceremony. The NC Junior Chef Competition first place team will then advance to the Southeast Junior Chef Competition, which will be held May 11th to 12th at Sullivan University in Kentucky. For the recipe contest, each team must submit an online submission form. Through the form, you will provide team contact info, answer related questions about steps taken in preparation for the competition, and upload your application with recipe photo, and permission forms. The online form will allow for everything to be housed in one location given the virtual format. Also, teams will be required to watch a series of educational videos on school nutrition, farm to school, NC agricultural products, and kitchen and food safety. The videos are intended to enhance the learning opportunity for students provided through the competition. As in previous years, teams will turn in a completed application, which will be uploaded as part of the submission form. Through the application, teams share contact information, approval signatures, their recipe with ingredients and directions, and nutrient analysis and costing. Follow your school and local education agency procedures for approval to participate in the NC Junior Chef competition. A signature is required from your school's principal and may be needed from an LEA administrator. It is encouraged that you consult with your school nutrition director and request that they sign off on your application to attest that they have reviewed and provided input on your team recipe. You may upload a scanned signature page with the submission form, or you may insert electronic signatures into the application. All right, Tracy.
Thanks, Gwen. So teams must develop a lunch entree recipe, school lunch entree recipe with a yield of 6 servings that meets the USDA requirements and includes at least 2 North Carolina Grown ingredients and 1 USDA foods item. So this is a commodity item that we use for school meals. A list of example North Carolina Grown ingredients is provided in the guidelines. A link to the most current USDA foods list is also provided. So new for last year and this year, at least one of the North Carolina Grown ingredients must be sweet potatoes, winter squash, dark leafy greens. So that would include collards, kale, mustard greens, turnip greens, romaine, spinach, Swiss chard, cabbage, red or green, legumes, beans and peas, or wheat. So those are the different categories of food items. And if you look back over the years at the recipes that teams have done, pretty much everybody has had at least one, if not more than one of those ingredients as a part of that. Those ingredients are feature ingredients as a part of a USDA Team Nutrition grant that we have. We heard from our schools that they needed assistance with additional recipes for those items as a part of that. And so we connected it in with the Junior Chef competition. So that's why we have that requirement as a part of that. And teams have been really creative in creating recipes. No raw milk, eggs, meat, poultry, or seafood should be served for consumption. We don't serve those in school meals, and so you wouldn't have any raw items as a part of that. So no ceviche or anything like that as a part of the competition. Even though many come from or are grown in North Carolina, dishes must not contain nuts or nut products because of allergies as a part of that. So keep that in mind. Teams are encouraged to reach out to their local school nutrition program. A school nutrition director, administrator, and or manager can assist in providing guidance to teams on meeting the nutrition requirements and having their recipes be replicable for school meals. Talk with your manager. That's probably your first contact as a part of that, but you may also need to connect with a supervisor or a director as a part of school nutrition to give you more guidance as to our nutrition requirements. Students should aim to create a dish that they and their peers would like, because we want these dishes to be on school menus and eaten by kids. Given this, teams should conduct at least one taste test of their recipe. They should be able to incorporate the feedback that they receive from the taste test into their recipe and share the results of their taste test as part of their presentation to the evaluators for the competition. Dishes should take no longer than 90 minutes to prepare, cook, and plate. We have a time limit from the Southeast competition. We use that same time limit for our state level competition. Reviewers and evaluators will check the recipes for the use of the 2 local ingredients and 1 USDA food item, along with adherence to school nutrition program requirements and NC Junior Chef competition guidelines. The competition committee reserves the right upon review to reject recipes or ask for adjustment. The recipe review panel does give some suggestions to teams, and we encourage you to incorporate that feedback from the recipe review panel, as you move on, but also as a part of a learning opportunity for students. Next slide. There we go. So school lunch entrees can be sold as a part of a complete reimbursable meal or a la carte. Given this, the recipe entrees created by the students for the competition should meet USDA Smart Snacks and school nutrition standards. That ensures that we can serve them both ways, as a part of a complete meal or on their own, a la carte. Because of these criteria, a school lunch entree is defined as the main course of a meal that has a combination of a meat alternate and a whole grain rich food. Or you could do a vegetable and a meat alternate, a fruit and a meat alternate, a meat alternate alone, except for meat snacks, beef jerky, or yogurt, cheese, seeds, and seed butters. For the most part, the entree is going to have at least a combination of that. Keep in mind, the regional competition is really strict on the entree requirements. They're looking for those 2 items, simple combos as a part of that. Often with our students, especially as a part of a family consumer sciences courses, they're thinking about entree as, maybe what you would get in a restaurant, and it has lots of different pieces and parts to it, and they're looking at only the entree combination. So keep that in mind. The more components you include, you'll have to look closer at your nutrient analysis, and your cost may go up also. So that could hurt your team in terms of being competitive as a part of it. So just keep those things in mind. If you have questions, let us know. Additional nutrition standards are shown on the table on the screen, and those are from Smart Snacks. Again, that helps the entrees be flexible in terms of being as a part of a complete reimbursable meal or served a la carte. And those guidelines also help teams to be more competitive at the regional level. Next slide. So on the nutrient analysis tab in the application, you've got different pages. It's an Excel workbook. So the beginning page is instructions. The next page is where you enter your team info, information about your recipe in terms of ingredients, directions or steps to prepare the recipe as a part of that. Tab 3 is the nutrient analysis tool as a part of that. And not everyone's going to have access to nutrient analysis software. So we tried to develop the workbook to help you with that process and to help the students with that process. So it can help you in calculating the calories, fat, saturated fat, and sodium for your recipe. The ingredients, amount used in the recipe, and the unit measure should automatically populate based on your ingredients entered in the application sheet, that page where you enter the basic information about your recipe. And then please keep in mind that all ingredients, including condiments, contribute to the nutrient analysis. So please make sure that you provide complete and accurate information. If you've got any missing, incomplete, or inaccurate info, it could, in fact, impact the calculations, and then also the team scoring as a part of that. There's formulas built into the sheet to help with the math behind the scenes. So be very careful. Try to encourage your students not to mess with that too much so that they get wacky numbers as a part of those calculations. So just keep that in mind. If you need a sheet that allows you to do more manual calculations and entering information, reach out to Gwen or I and let us know as a part of that. Next slide.
Did it go to the next slide?
No, I still see
Okay.
nutrient analysis.
I don't know why. There it goes.
Okay. All right. So for the cost analysis worksheet of the application, this is going to be tab 5. We want you to make sure that the team name and the recipe name are at the top. They should carry over from the application page, but if not, just make sure that they're entered in there. And then your number of portions or servings, the recipe yields, we're aiming for at least 6. It could offer more than that, but we want to make sure that we have an accurate number because that affects everything with the nutrient analysis and the costing. And the portion size is at the top of the page. And then enter in the ingredients. Some of that information may carry over from the application page, but if not, just make sure that it all aligns between the different pages of the Excel workbook as a part of that. Enter in the purchase unit for the ingredient, the purchase cost, the unit cost, which is the cost per unit measure. That's the information, like if you go in the grocery store, you see that on the tag on the shelf. The amount needed and the ingredient cost will be calculated for you. All this is meant to walk you and your students through the steps of, okay, this is how much of the ingredient that I'm using. This is how much I purchased it for. This is how much, its unit cost per purchase, and that translates to the cost in the recipe. So the different columns in the worksheet are meant to help you walk through that process. Again, because you're most likely, some schools will have access to software to help with this, but not all of them will. And so we tried to make it easy for you in walking through that process as a part of the competition. And then once you have entered that information, and you've got your ingredient costs in the far right-hand column, it should total at the bottom, and then divide by the number of portions or servings you said the recipe had as a part of that, and then it'll give you your total cost per serving as a part of that. So again, it's all meant to help you with those different calculations. If you have questions, let us know. All right, next slide. Or if you have trouble with the worksheet, also let us know. All right, permission and release forms. Completed and signed parental permission and release forms must be submitted for each student team member. Please make sure that all the blanks are completed on the form. It's a really simple, short form, but we need to make sure that all the information is there, especially the contact information and the signatures in 2 places. There's permission to participate and the media release. We tried to combine it and make it easy in one form. And the form grants permission for students to compete in both the state and the regional competition. The media release is for both competitions as well. Next slide. All right, so recipe review criteria. As Gwen shared, there's really 2 phases to the competition. There's the recipe contest, and that helps us to narrow down to, we can accept up to 8 finalist teams as a part of that, and then the cook-off piece. So let me focus in on the recipe contest portion of it. So the recipe review panel will review the submission forms, and those are online submission forms, the applications, those Excel workbooks with the recipe info, the cost and nutrient analysis, and the recipe photos that the team submit. The scoring rubric addresses whether everything was submitted and on time and complete, and it also takes a look at the quality of the recipe photo and the quality of the overall recipe as a part of that. The recipe review panel will score each team's entry, and they'll decide upon who will be our 8 finalist teams as a part of that. We can accept up to 8. And that's based on educational regions in the state. All right, let's see. Next slide, please. So for the cook-off, finalist teams, again, they will get that feedback from the recipe review panel that I mentioned. They can choose to update their applications, recipes, and recipe photos based on that feedback. We highly encourage them to do so. The recipe review panel always gives helpful information and feedback. Each finalist team must update their online submission form for the cook-off phase. So they'll upload their updated applications with the recipes and the recipe photos. They'll also include for the cook-off phase their work plan, and that's a simple chart that has their time, the steps they take to prepare and plate their recipe, and who's responsible for those different steps as a part of that process. And then they'll also share a link to an unedited video of the team preparing and their plating their recipe. Because we're not going to be together this year for the cook-off, we're going to use a video that helps the evaluators see your teams preparing and plating their recipes. So, and this is going to be, it's really an important part of the competition as a part of that. So the video recording of the teams preparing and plating their dishes should be done in one take, no editing or starting over. It should show the work surfaces entirely and the students at all times. The video can show the team working together when allowable or show individual team members creating parts of the dish. If they can't be together in the same location, that's okay. The video must be unedited footage of recipe preparation. The team members must create parts of the dish in separate locations. The footage can be combined for one video submission. That's okay if you have to do that. Please keep in mind that the evaluators are not scoring teams on the quality of the video. We're not looking for Hollywood productions. We just need to see the teams in action preparing and plating their dishes as a part of that, and see what skills they're demonstrating as a part of that. All right, next slide. So don't stress about the videos. Focus on the recipes. All right. So the live interviews, Gwen mentioned that we would conduct live interviews with the teams. Typically when we're in person for the cook-off, the teams are able to present their dishes and answer questions of the judges. So we're going to be doing that same thing, just as a part of a live virtual interview. So we'll log on to a platform, and the teams will have 5 minutes to present their recipe to the evaluators, and then the evaluators will have a chance to ask the teams questions and also share some feedback with the teams on what they did well with and things they can improve upon for the future. And so teams have really appreciated that opportunity to connect in with evaluators in the past as a part of that. So we look forward to doing it for this year. So after reviewing the applications, the recipes, the recipe photos, the work plans, and the videos, evaluators are going to score the teams, and they'll talk with each other and decide on the team medals and placement based on those scores. Next slide.
All right. So the evaluators will use the NC Junior Chef Competition Cook-Off Scoring Rubric, as you can see a screenshot of that here, to score each team regarding recipe requirements, recipe development, taste test, safety and sanitation, execution and teamwork, appearance and presentation. Please note that teams are expected to follow appropriate food safety procedures and safety guidelines. The NC Junior Chef Committee will provide chef's hats, coats, and aprons for the teams. The committee will do its best to get these to the teams in a timely manner so that the teams may wear these in their videos. Teams will not be penalized if they are not able to receive their junior chef attire in time, but they must wear appropriate professional attire for the kitchen. Teams will not be scored on how well their videos are edited, as Tracy has said. The competition is not about video quality, lighting, effects, editing, so on and so forth. It is really only for the judges to be able to observe and evaluate the culinary skills of the teams. Taste tests. So the NC Junior Chef Competition is incorporated into a team nutrition training grant with the NC Department of Public Instruction, recently received by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. As part of the Cultivating Culinary Creativity Grant Project, NCDPI will work with the NC Junior Chef teams and their local school nutrition programs to develop standardized recipes for school meals. As part of the competition, NC Junior Chef teams will create and conduct the initial taste test of the recipes. NCDPI will scale up, standardize, and verify the recipe yield for the finalist team's recipes and work with the local school nutrition programs and NC Junior Chef teams to conduct an additional taste test before finalizing the recipes to be menued for school meals. Teams will share the results of their taste test as part of their presentation to the evaluators during the live interviews for the cook-off. In conducting taste tests, there are some helpful guidance teams can use. Plan ahead. Teams may conduct one or multiple taste tests of their recipe. They may conduct taste tests with just their class, a sampling of students from several classes, or most of the school. In reaching most of the school, they may aim to conduct taste tests during school lunch. Junior chefs should coordinate with their teacher and their school nutrition manager at their school. Make sure that you have enough to provide adequate samples to the number of students participating in the taste test. Follow food safety protocols in preparing and serving your recipe for the taste test. To prevent passing COVID-19, flu, or any other illnesses, best practice would be to prepare samples in advance to distribute in covered sample containers, provide prepackaged silverware if need be. Promote your taste test opportunity in advance and make sure you encourage participation. Ensure students are aware of the ingredients in your recipes in case of any allergies. Utilize a method to collect and analyze the feedback from the taste test. For example, you can use a short paper or an online survey form to ask students for their thoughts on the look, smell, taste, and texture of the dish. Ask if they would like to have the dish again and if they have suggestions for improvement. If a student simply reports that they do not like the dish, then try to glean more by asking what they did not like and how they would suggest improving the dish to collect constructive feedback. Some taste testing resources are provided in the competition guidelines for you to use. Tracy?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's to me. All right. So we wanted to give you some tips that we've learned over the years and share with you for your teams. Plan early to enter the competition. And we've had some changes in the competition format this year. And so we didn't get all the information out as soon as we'd like, but we're trying to give you as much time as possible within the different phases of the competition this year to get everything together and get it ready and submit it as a part of that. So plan as early as you can. Submit forms and required elements on time, if not early. It never fails when you wait to the last minute, that last hour, that last day, something's going to happen. Something's going to happen with your computer, the internet, you name it, as a part of that. So don't wait until the last minute, because we want to make sure that your application and all of your required materials are submitted. Read the guidelines, the application, and other materials thoroughly. Watch the educational videos. They're required, but they have very helpful information as a part of that. I talked about the costing as an example. The school nutrition video gives you a little bit extra information as a part of that. There's also videos on farm to school, North Carolina agriculture products, and also safety, and those are all very helpful for the teams. Please encourage and support collaboration. It is not an easy task to plan meals that meet school nutrition regulations. Creating recipes that meet these requirements that are replicable and economical for our school nutrition programs is a difficult task. So teams really need the expertise of their local school nutrition professionals to meet the competition requirements. So work together as a part of that. Teams create a recipe for an entree, but they should also think about how it fits into a complete reimbursable school meal, because as a part of your presentation at the state and regional level, you'll likely be asked by the evaluators, what would you serve this with as a part of that? So keep that in mind. We provide a list of North Carolina grown ingredients and a link to the current list of USDA foods, but we always have applications that have mislabeled these items. So please double check this and make sure that you labeled everything correctly. Check your application before submission to make sure everything is complete, accurate, and clear. Check in with the appropriate school administrators on the process for obtaining permission to participate. We don't want any team selected to compete in the cook-off or other related events to be denied the ability to participate because they didn't get the proper permission from their local administration. Once selected as a finalist, teams should be sure to practice. It helps them to be prepared and less stressed for the cook-off. So practice before you do your video as a part of that. Please take care with food safety. There's at least one judge at the cook-off that's always going to be focused on food safety techniques. So hand washing, proper glove use, separation of raw meat and poultry from other things, temperatures, all that. And many of ours, pretty much all of our evaluators have that expertise as well, but we'll have at least one look at getting that. So keep that in mind. And that's very important for school meals. Help students learn about school meals and farm to school. Evaluators are going to ask them questions to see how much the students know and understand about school meals, our programs, and farm to school. And all steps in the process of participating in the Junior Chef competition are accomplishments. So please help the team celebrate those accomplishments. It's not easy to create a recipe for school meals, as I mentioned earlier. All of these steps in the process are important and they're great learning opportunities, and so celebrate those accomplishments. All right, next slide. And then we'll take some questions. All right, so we tried to offer some resources in the guidelines. So that's another reason to look through them, not just the rules for the competition. And so there's links in there to a variety of different resources, more information from our website about our school nutrition programs, food buying guide, which can help you with costing for school nutrition programs. Food Data Central offers nutrient analysis info for products that you would incorporate into your recipe. There's also resources about whole grains. There's the USDA Foods List, and also the Got to Be NC website from NCDA, where you can find out what products are grown in our state. And then also the North Carolina Farm to School program to see what products they offer to our schools. And then there's also some educational resources there as well.
All right. So we do have a couple of questions in the chat. Debbie has asked some good questions. And so with everything being in Excel, sometimes converting, excuse me, over to Google Sheets can kind of be cumbersome. And so can we do this have the forms in a Google format? So it's easy to fill in that way.
Great question. And we had somebody else ask that question too. So we are working on a Google Sheet. It's a little bit tricky with the formulas and everything behind the scenes. If we can get that ready, we'll share it with you and give you a heads up that it's available.
Can we share this PowerPoint with them so they can have this to refer back to? And is that okay, Tracy?
We should be able to, yeah, save it and post it.
Yeah. I can post this to our FCS Moodle.
Okay.
So,
yeah, and we'll share the recording as well if you want to look back at this or have other folks that weren't able to join us today that need to listen to it. We can share those.
Yeah. And then the last question is if the video is too large, because this is going to be a lengthy video that they're going to be recording, what are some suggestions if it's too large to upload? What are some suggestions to make sure that gets submitted if problems arise at the last minute?
Yeah. Great question. So as a part of that, you may have heard me say, share a link to your video so you don't have to upload it to our online form because yes, you might end up with some issues in terms of the size of the file. If you post it somewhere, on your Google Drive or somewhere else and just share the link with us, that should work so that you're not having to upload somewhere else.
And a question from Lisa. Do we buy the groceries at the grocery store for this competition?
Yeah, great question. You can buy the groceries at the grocery store, and as you're doing that, you don't have to get it from a food service distributor or that kind of thing. If you're doing it from the grocery store and it's not quite in the same format that we might use in school meals, just, note that as a part of your presentation. We talked with our local school nutrition program. This is how they would adapt it for food service as a part of that. But yes, you can purchase them from the local grocery store, your local farmer's market, that kind of thing. Just make sure that you get the cost information that you need for that analysis. And then if you have it from the grocery store, you can have the labels for your nutrient analysis. And then if you don't, like if you get a product from a farmer or a farmer's market, then Food Data Central would be a great resource for you to get the nutrient analysis information, like on cabbage or greens or, beans or something else that you purchased from them.
Okay. And Nira, I hope I'm saying your name right. Naira, I'm sorry, has asked this question before. And so we just want to make sure we reiterate it, but she has an amputee that will be participating and would like to know if there's anything special that needs to be done, if there needs to be a doctor note, or adaptive tools can be used.
And we want as many students to participate as possible. So we can talk with you more probably offline and see what the situation is for that particular student. Was there another question that came up?
Yeah, there's another one that just came through. Lisa said, the food info will populate on the food form. Does the cost populate?
I'm trying to read behind the scenes of that question. So the application page is where you enter the ingredients, the quantities, and the steps. And some of that information in terms of the ingredients and the quantities should translate over to the nutrient analysis page. and the cost analysis page. If it doesn't, just copy it and put it in there. And then you would have the information based on purchasing the ingredients in regards to what it cost you. And then take a look at the unit measure cost, and that will help you to calculate, because often when you're purchasing ingredients for reciping, like you're purchasing a whole thing of flour or a whole thing of collards, or whatever the case may be, you might not use all that in terms of the recipe. And so that page in the worksheet is helping you figure out how much did I actually spend on the ingredients that I actually used in my recipe, and what that translates to in terms of total cost, and then dividing that by the number of servings or portions your recipe yields to get that cost per serving, because that's really important to us in school nutrition programs. And I didn't go into detail as a part of that particular slide in the webinar today, but in the guidelines, we have the reimbursement rates, the current reimbursement rates. Keep in mind that the entree is just one portion of that reimbursement rate. There's a little bit more information in the school nutrition video if you need it.
Are there any other questions at this time? You can type in the chat, or you can.
Hey,
Yeah.
sorry, I'm just dialed in. I'm not on the webinar, but I wanted to ask about just the timeline on this, and just maybe put it out for next year. This is only about 2 weeks into our new semester, so it's just a really tight turnover between meeting new students and getting this in, if we're going to have them kind of created on their own. So just, maybe a recommendation for next year, if we could put a timeline in one direction or the other.
Yeah, we understand it's a tight timeline for this semester, because we're trying to make sure that we are able to have a team successfully be able to compete at the regional competition. That kind of pushed our timeline up because their timeline moved up some. Right, Tracy?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
but yes, in the future, we are evaluating the timeline in the future and what is the best avenue to take for that.
Yeah, we hear
Gotcha.
you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we hear you. We wanted to get the information out sooner this year, but we had some changes that were beyond our control, and we were waiting on some information from regional representatives as well. We're getting it out to you as soon as we can, and trying to give you windows within the deadlines for as much time as possible. And then, as Gwen mentioned, the regional competition is earlier this year, and so that impacted us too. So the one benefit of not having an in-person cook-off is you don't have that additional deadline of trying to submit that paperwork for travel as a part of it. So it gives you a little bit more time doing it virtually.
Right. Well, all right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Are there any other questions? Oh, I'm sorry, Lisa. I saw she asked another question of how much should the entree cost? What would be a good idea for that?
Yeah. So if you look at, and I don't have the rates right in front of me. If you look at the guidelines, there's a chart that shows you the full reimbursement that we receive for a whole school meal. And for lunch, that would have 5 components. So it would be your meat alternate, your grains, your fruit and vegetable, and your milk. And so your entree would be a portion of that, right? Because it's 2 components. So just think about that in terms of the reimbursement rates, but also, our folks are given guidelines in terms of percent to spend on food and labor and other costs as a part of that. So you don't have quite that full reimbursement rate, and then the entree is a portion of that. And so we give you some additional guidance in the guidelines, and then also in that school nutrition video about the calculations and the range to aim for as a part of that. So I would encourage you to take a look at that. So we don't serve filet mignon or lobster or other high price items in school meals. We wish we could. So we're in a small range for our pricing. So we're a little above $3 for our reimbursement for lunch. So keep that in mind. And we know that, and the evaluators know that because you're purchasing on a smaller scale on your purchase grocery store compared to our programs. If it's a little bit higher, that's okay. We can factor that in and we recognize that. So don't stress too much, but try and, make the most economical recipe that you can as a part of that. And keep in mind the number of ingredients as well. And then again, if you're including so many components as a part of that, that's going to affect your overall cost as well. I hope that helps.
Are there any more questions? We'll make sure we get this this slideshow shared out with you guys so that you can have this to share with possible teams, any of your students, to see if they're interested in what you have going forward. And Tracy, if you don't have anything else.
No, I think that gets it for today. Thank you so much for participating. We look forward to receiving your applications from your teams.
Yeah. And our emails are here on the screen. If you have any questions that you think of afterwards, things you need to know, or have any concerns with the applications or anything, you can always reach out to either one of us and we will do our best to help you. So thank you.